My main problem with Re:Zero was it just wasn't creative or well executed from a storytelling perspective. If you compare Re:Zero to Run Lola Run, Groundhog Day, or The Edge of Tomorrow that use a similar narrative trope, it doesn't compare. Those movies use a lot of comedy and it worked well with the narrative trope. Re:Zero doesn't use comedy, but it also doesn't give Subaru that many clever adjustments to do in the various timelines. Later in the story, when it becomes more of a conventional fantasy story, the problem is they do not set up any of the villains, so it feels like the story is either yanking you around or you're stuck in an uninteresting part of the narrative. The show has some cool surprises. The reveal of Rem as the killer was probably the best, but most of the time you feel more like, oh, he was cursed by a rabid ghost dog? How come I didn't figure that out? In fairness, Run Lola Run has some crazy surprises, but they are supposed to be funny, which isn't what they were going for in Re:Zero. I'm going to examine most of the show to demonstrate this, so huge spoilers coming. Right off the bat, the show annoyed me by having Subaru give the audience exposition by talking out loud to himself. It's just lame and it feels like lazy writing. Subaru is also genre savvy, but they never create funny scenarios for him to play up his genre savviness, or even give him a one-liner a la Deadpool. Just the fact that he's genre savvy is supposed to be hilarious enough for us. Eventually, Subaru's redo power is introduced, and with it, a problem that I feel dragged through the entire show. There's just not quite enough reasoning for Subaru to dedicate his life to help Emily at all costs, nor is it that clear to us that all his actions directly help Emilia. We see them have a decent day together, but dude's immortal. Why not do anything else? If you think about it, you can usually link Subaru's actions, especially the more bizarre ones, to his feelings towards Emilia, but we shouldn't have to do this. The show either needed a friend character for Subaru to talk out some of his decisions with so we could better understand him. Beatrice in the Mansion arc serves this purpose a bit, or they could have his decisions be straightforward, or actually do the Groundhog Day thing and have him make different decisions before he ultimately decides on the path the plot demands.
Or not, I studied 19th century French poetry.
What a waste of time.
I studied 19th century French poetry.
La fille qui j'aimerais.
You speak French.
Oui.
The best part of using the Groundhog Day narrative is giving the characters the freedom to explore different approaches and attitudes. They don't have Subaru change his attitude that much except the Rem pep talk episode. For example, in the first arc, instead of always going to buy the insignia off of Felt, you could have him think about himself and just have a good time. He can sell his cell phone and spend the rest of the day playing soccer or talking to girls at the bookstore. After having a day of fun, he could be at some bar finishing up his last beer of the night. Elsa walks in and starts bragging about how she killed 3 people to get this insignia. This would understandably rage him and focus him on trying to save Emilia, Felt, and Rom. At least then you feel he tried to do something else, but he just can't escape this narrative, as opposed to him making all these weird actions that follow the plot. There were other things that annoyed me about the first arc as well. Elsa's character design was grotesque to look at, and she had a bad guy tick where she always licked her lips, which is fine, whatever. But they showed way too many close-up shots of her licking her lip. In the first arc, they have Subaru running into the same 3 pickpockets, which might be an homage to Ned Viason, but one time Subaru meets them, he is able to beat up all 3 of them by himself. Not because he memorized their moves or something logical, he's just really mad that time. However, the next time he meets them, he needs to be saved by a cop, so it just doesn't make any sense why he was able to beat them all up that one time. When he finally does defeat Elsa, it's not like he mastered an approach by living the same day hundreds of times, or even, I don't know, a few dozen. He beats Elsa because Emilia and Reinhardt both show up and fight her, which weren't events he intentionally orchestrated. The Mansion arc is when the mystery and the surprise reveals of the show are probably at its height. But one of the reasons for this is we have no idea what is happening. What they needed to do at the beginning of the arc is have Rose Wall tell everyone that Emilia's queen selection is coming, and everyone needs to be on their toes for spies and such. That way we have some idea where the story is going, and we have more of an idea what Rem and Ram's motives are for killing Subaru. When it is revealed that Rem and Ram are killing him, Subaru's reaction is to be really nice to Rem and Ram so they don't kill him. But why not get the hell away from the mansion? I guess it's because him and Emily had that nice afternoon together that one time, but again, does it feel like enough of a reason? When Subaru says things like, all I have to do is make it to the 5th day in the mansion, why does he think the 5th day will be different? I will say the highlight of this arc was Beatrice. It was great to see her stick up for Subaru when Ram wants to kill him with zero evidence Subaru is guilty. Subaru and Ram eventually go to Soul Reaper and try to kill these big dog spirit things. That part feels like you're watching an episode of an early 2000s late monster hunting anime. Eventually they beat them and we are on to the next arc where they turn the light novel up to 11. Emilia tells Subaru not to go to the selection ceremony, but Subaru goes anyway because I guess Subaru is stuck in Emilia now. The arc that follows was probably the most confusing in the series for a few reasons. It's not set up that the witch cult is a grave threat to Roswaal's mansion. If it's true that they are a grave threat, Roswaal should have his own militia like the other lords have. It's also not clear the distance between the capital and Roswaal's mansion, which is a big factor in the arc. Earlier in the series, Emilia and Subaru travel to the capital as a day trip, but now Subaru and Rem have to stay at a hotel somewhere overnight. You're left constantly questioning where they get this information that the Roswaal mansion is going to be attacked. Why are they staying in a hotel? Not immediately going to help. I get they're low on mana, but when your house is under attack from a witch cult, that qualifies as an emergency. Subaru goes to Crush to help, but Roswaal seems like the more obvious guy to go to. They say something about Roswaal being too far away to go get and be back before the witch cult attack, but they should have spent more time explaining that to us. The arc has some creepy atmosphere. The show shines through the most visually in this arc, but the story is at its most confusing as well. While we're at it, let's take a run at the greatest episode of all time. Subaru finally gives up and asks Rem to run away with him, and Rem says no and talks him into saving Emilia again. But they could have taken advantage of the narrative trope and have Rem actually run away with him. It could be like Rory Life Well Lived style flash forward. They could do all the stuff that Rem said she imagined them doing, like having kids and such. Then one day he decides to end Hero because he can't live with the guilt of not helping Emilia, and he goes back 55 years to the Apple stand. To me, that would have been a cooler use of the gimmick than just having him get a pep talk about how great he is from Rem. Now we get to the best part of the show. Subaru, who has been a butler at the Roswaal mansion for a couple weeks, negotiated away the Roswaal mining rights to Crush. Oh no, after that part, the whale fight. Best flying whale fight I've ever seen. I loved all the blood. I loved how the old man would jump on the whale and jet ski through the whale with blood going everywhere. By far my favorite part of the show. The last part of the show continues to play hide the ball a bit because you know Subaru's plan, but you don't really know Beetlejuice's abilities. Since Subaru has all these warriors with him, you don't think he can lose to Beetlejuice and his minions. But so a little storytelling tip. You usually want to have the bad guys seem stronger than the good guys, so it's an accomplishment when the good guys win. I know people complain about all the light novel characters in the last arc, but I actually liked a lot of them. Problem with the last arc is the villain didn't really seem that hard to beat. Beetlejuice's abilities don't follow rules either. Julius and Subaru finally kill him by using the method that Julius suggests because he's an expert on that sort of thing. But the Beetlejuice comes back to life anyway as a giant spider. So how do we know that when they kill him at the end, he's dead for reals? I would rate the show a 4 out of 10 and would not recommend anyone watch it.